Filmsnobbery is brought to you by Sony Creative and Vegas Pro 9 editing software, professional video editing, audio production, and Blu-ray disc production. Final Draft, the industry standard for script writing, version 8 now available. And Boris Effects, the advanced level plugin and application for all kinds of editing fun. Also check out their Red, Continuum, and Graffiti software suites. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Film Snobbery. I am your host, the Film Snob, Nick Baisley. We've got a great show for you today. I know I say that every week, but this week, I mean it. We actually got some great stuff. We're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about a little bit about screenwriting. We're going to talk a little bit about some expectations of distributors when you actually get approached by them or you are approaching them. And we've got special guest Clive Davies-Frayne of Film Utopia, who's also going to be calling in later this evening. You might notice it's a little quiet here on set today because we have no co-host. Co-host Jerry Cavallero is actually out with his film Stuck Like Chuck. He's actually out at the Orlando Film Festival. I believe it plays either tonight or tomorrow, but either way he's busy. So he's going to be away for a little bit longer. And also fill-in director Francis Abbey was not able to make it this evening. So I am all by my lonesome. I'm not worried about it because we've got a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of great things to talk about, and I think we need to get right into it. So, we have some information I want to go over to you guys, because one thing that we neglect to kind of talk about, we talk a lot about marketing, we talk a lot about distribution, we talk a lot about branding, we talk a lot about professionalism, expectations, stuff like that. One thing we don't cover that is very important to all of this and is critical, begins way early in the pre-production stage that is often neglected, but is just as important as anything else before you even shoot a frame of film, is your script. And there are a lot of different ways that you guys and girls, I guess, can actually go out there and deliver your script. First of all, there's writing it. I mean, you can go the old-fashioned route. You can just pick up a pen and just start going freehand. Okay? If you're in the digital age like the rest of the world here, another thing you can do is there's a lot of software choices out there that you guys can go. I'm going to actually go over a couple of them with you right now because they're two of the more prominent ones that are actually out there. The first one does happen to be a sponsor of ours. I'm not plugging them because of that. I'm plugging them because they are the industry standard for script writing, and that is Final Draft. Final Draft, it retails for about $249. They have an upgrade path if you have a previous version, so it's a little bit less expensive. But they are the preferred file format of the Writers Guild of America. They also, they partner and actually own Script Magazine, so I mean there's a lot of tie-ins there that when you're using them, there are a lot of different advantages of using that software. I mean it is recognized by the industry as being like the number one. It has a lot of different functions and stuff that you can work on, even if you're not making a film, but you're just also, if you're a film production company and you're even making just commercials, documentaries, stuff like that, there's also Final Draft AV that's out. We actually have a copy of that. We use it occasionally. And what that actually entails you to do is it allows you to even add in scene notes along with the actual script. So, basically you can do shot listing along with your script side by side. A lot of other functions as well. It is slightly more expensive. It is the slightly more expensive route to go. However, again, industry standard. You generally do pay a little bit more for that. I mean, it's the reason why a lot of us will go out there and will buy, a Mac, along with Final Cut. Why? Because we understand that, or a lot of you guys understand that. As our guest is going to be calling in very shortly. A lot of you guys understand that when you buy a Mac and you buy Final Cut, you understand that what you're getting for that is a kind of almost like an understanding with the software and with the industry that as you're creating your movie with this, that's what a lot of other people are doing. And so, you can get away with copying that a little bit because of, the understanding that it's kind of an industry staple at this point. There are cheaper, but like Final Draft and like a Mac with Final Cut on it, there are cheaper alternatives. One alternative that I'm actually going to post to you guys is actually a free alternative called Celtics. Or Celtics. I don't know exactly how it's pronounced. I call it Celtics, Celtx. And what that can do for you is, what that can do for you is, it provides a lot of the same features as Final Draft. They both provide some sort of kind of a note carding or tabbing type of thing, so you can kind of reorganize your script as you're working along. Obviously, it has the basic script functions of being able to add characters, dialogues, and several other set directions, voiceover stuff, all that kind of whatnot. It allows you to professionally manage your script building. And again, they're free. They also have another piece of their software for pre-production that is actually a $5 a month. It's called Celtic Studio, and what that also does is that kind of aids in your pre-production stuff. One real advantage I find of Final Draft over Celtics is you actually have the ability to actually submit your script directly to the Writers Guild of America through Final Draft. They have a partnership with them. There's actually, I believe I think it's like a $20 fee per submission of the script, but it actually gets your script into the archives of the Writers Guild of America. So there's good stuff there. Screenwriting is something that needs to not ever be neglected in a movie. I mean, even if your movie is shot on a very cheap DV camera, if it's shot with natural lighting, you're not a master of editing. If you have a very compelling story, you can save that movie. At the very least, you can get people interested enough in the story to possibly remake your movie. Visuals count for something, but they actually say a lot of times it's more so of how you say what you're doing rather than showing what you're doing. So you might look a certain way, but if you're showing it, it's the way you're telling it is slightly different. I think that I have hot cocoa. It's a little chilly on the set today. So what we have here is a couple of different models for you guys. For those of you who want to go the more, I don't want to say the more professional route, but you want to go the more industry standard route where you have a couple more options of where that script goes after you're finished. If you're one of those people that are just banging out scripts constantly, you just want something that's going to give you just some sort of a format that you can actually work with, Celtics is another good free option, especially if you're the indie filmmaker who's working on a no budget. Celtics would actually be a really good addition to what we were talking about last week, or Tuesday, when we were talking about or it wasn't Tuesday, I'm sorry, it was last Friday when we were talking about the kind of budget filmmaker, here's all your equipment to make a movie under $5,000. The script writing software probably could have been included in that, but we would have included Celtics, but it would have been free, so it wouldn't affect your budget. So that's part of your pre-production, and actually spending $5 a month on the Celtic Studio, giving it a try, and I believe both with Final Draft and with Celtics, I think they both have a 30-day no questions asked money back guarantee type of situation as far as anything that you have to spend money on. So I would definitely investigate that a little bit, kind of get a little bit of information as to what you can do in that particular case. I definitely think that. Having your script archived in the WGA is a really good idea, because you never know, and the show is a perfect example of that. You never know who's watching and who's looking at your stuff. You could have a script sitting in there that might just blow up, and you would never know it because it's not archived there. Speaking of scripts and submitting them and getting them archived with the writers, the WGA. Great idea. Here's another thing that's out there, though. There's a great website out there called inktip.com. Now, we're not affiliated with them at all, but I've kind of looked around and kind of seen what they have to do, and they actually have some really good things that, good products and services that they're offering, and I want to just share them with you. They're not the cheapest alternatives in the world, but, at the same time, it's a really good kind of a shortcut, I think, if you're a good writer. If you feel that you might not be a great director, you might not be a great producer, but you know that your strength is in your writing, the next thing that you can actually do is you can actually go to inktip.com, and what you can do is if you're looking to start a project, you can find writers and their scripts there. If you are a writer, you can submit your scripts there. And you can get your project featured on their homepage. You can get your project featured in their magazine. You can actually pay to have your log line listed there in their magazine. It comes out every 2 months. It's $40 for the log line, though. Again, this is where it starts to get a little expensive, because if you have multiple projects that you're doing multiple submissions, that can get kind of expensive. And actually, even doing a script listing there is $60, but that gives you 6 months of listing. That's not really bad. I mean, if you want to break it down, it's $10 a month. Just paying it all up front is very can be out of pocket, really difficult for some people. But if you look at the stats on their website of how many scripts are submitted versus how many writers are listed versus how many projects are bought, how many writers that are there are represented. You can see that if you're an agent, you can go find writers there. If you're a writer looking for an agent, you may be able to pick up one there. If you're a director looking for a new project, you can find your next project there maybe. If you are a writer, you're a screenwriter, and you're submitting screenplays, you have the opportunity to find directors. I mean, you don't always necessarily have to, just because you're independent doesn't mean you have to work for free. I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there that are willing to pay for a good script. Even if it's a few $100s, maybe if it's a couple grand, whatever. And doing it this way also will give you a good, clear, concise control of your rights and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's one thing when you're the writer, director, producer, blah 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 blah. When you are the writer and you're being attached to a project, you have a little bit of mobility with how you how your work is treated. Not saying you don't as a slash, but the thing of it is that I think that sometimes you get so wrapped up in all the other facets of your job that while you're trying to create your vision, there's a bit of compromise there, because you have to divide up your brain, and you have to divide up everything into different segments to get that vision realized. And I think that there's something slightly lost in translation along the way. So, when you have a finished script, and this goes with anything in the industry, because remember, the industry, I know we use the term nebulously, but let's even say studios, whether they be independent or otherwise, are looking for projects. If you go and you have a script, and you don't have the resources to get it made, you're still providing content. You're not going to someone with hat in hand. You've got the idea for them, and sometimes that's one thing that's critical and is missing, is the idea. That being said, I want to go into another thing. Speaking of ideas, and speaking of a lot of things that are missing, that when you look around, that was a really awkward segue, but I'm going to work with it. Distributors, working with distributors. A lot of the reasons I think that some of us have such a hard time, and the reason why distributors have shied away from independent film, not shied away to the point where no one's buying indie film. I mean, I think they sold 20 films this year over at Sundance, or it was either 12 or 20 films just land over this year at Sundance, out of thousands of submissions, and then out of hundreds that actually played at Sundance. We all know that Sundance is barely an indie film fest anymore. I'm just using that to give an example of the amount of scripts that are, scripts and movies, etc., that are being submitted versus how many are actually getting bought. I bet a lot of these films are getting disqualified right off the bat from being bought and coming to the table because of, and I hate to use a harsher term, unprofessionalism. If you're going to a distributor and you're going to a festival and you're just going there with your movie, whether it be your Betacam, your whatever, your DV cam, or whatever your copy is, and you have no sell sheets, you don't have anything. I mean, you're not prepared. Even your production doesn't even have E&O insurance, which is really, really important. It's something that's often overlooked by independent filmmakers because they feel that, well, my distributor will take care of that. By talking with distributors, I found that a lot of them actually won't take care of that. They actually feel that things like E&O insurance, your dialogue script, your music release, your music cue sheet, your sell sheets, your production stills, all that stuff are actually part of your production budget, and may actually refuse to review or to buy your film based on your lack of these materials. Now, I'll go through these a little bit one by one quickly, just to give you guys an idea of what all these things are, because it's a lot to take in, and a lot of people may even be like, what the hell is E&O insurance? Think of E&O insurance as E&O insurance stands for errors and omissions, and basically it's used just in case you violate any copyright laws. Think of it as almost like I've heard the term and read the term elsewhere. Think of it as like malpractice insurance. Like you go along and you have all of this stuff, but say you didn't clear something, whether it be music, maybe it be maybe your thing, you have one scene that takes place in a store and one particular brand is not covered up with gaffer tape, or it's not changed or whatever, that you could ostensibly be sued by that company because they don't like the way their product is positioned in your movie. Also, you didn't ask permission to use their copywritten images, logos, art, all that kind of stuff. So E&O insurance, you can get it relatively inexpensively. Now, a lot of you guys that are out there making movies for $2,000, $3,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. It's a bit of a rude awakening, because sometimes E&O insurance, and I've seen the bare minimum, and maybe other people have had other luck, but I've seen the bare minimum for E&O insurance somewhere around the realm of $5,000 for your production, and it covers, but what it covers, the other reason why distributors look for it is because it covers your distributor's ass as well. The distributor is looking for you to look out for them. Just as much as they're making an investment in you, they want to see that you're making an investment in your project, in what they're doing. The next thing is your dialogue script. Everyone says, well, they have my script. Isn't that enough? Your script has all your scenes, your characters, your dialogue, all the extraneous stuff. But what your dialogue script is the word for word set of dialogue in your movie, and that has to include time codes, at least one time code per page, and as well as you have to include the characters' names. The other thing you have to include is also all of if they ad lib at all, you actually have to include the ad libs and transcode the ad libs into that dialogue script. That being said, you have a dialogue script. The next thing after that actually is your music release. Music release is your basically all the music contracts for your movie, all the releases that you've signed with all the different bands who have agreed to supply music for your movie, whether it be stuff from the person that scored your movie all the way to whatever indie band or whatever you found on MySpace. And believe me, that needs to be taken care of. I've actually Jerry Cavallero. Co-host Jerry Cavallero, who's not with us, actually has a really interesting story of a band that the band signed the contracts, signed the releases just like they were supposed to. However, an ex-band member actually came back later and said, "That's my song. What the heck?" Said, "Hey, well, you have to pay me, or you have to remove it." Now the band signed that contract, and he has a release for that. With the understanding that the band actually owns that song. It can get messy. You want to make sure that everything you do is as clear cut as you possibly can do it, because he almost had to actually pull his trailer and actually use an entirely new song for his trailer, which is just lost time and lost. It's lost time, and it's just BS that as a filmmaker you don't need to do. So. So on top of that, then there's you have your music releases, great, but you also need a music cue sheet. It's very similar to your dialogue script. Basically, a music cue sheet is a time-coded sheet that actually has all your music cues on it. So basically, wherever a piece of music appears in your movie, you have a sheet, has a time code on it, and says exactly where that song starts and ends and stuff like that. Well, at least starts. I don't think you have to do when it ends, but where that song starts in your movie. And it's so that people like the lawyers and all the other stuff that get involved with your production on the distribution side can make sure that you did your due diligence as the filmmaker to make sure that their butt is covered. And then there's two or three other things that are really important that I see often neglected in independent film. I've seen some people are really good at it. Others aren't. One is to actually have your sell sheets. Your sell sheets are all sell sheets are it's just a fancy Hollywood term for a poster, and it doesn't have to be a full, big, huge, poster with a frame or anything. All you really need is you just need to have like an 8.5 by 11 glossy, like real good, heavy, photo stock paper with basically your movie's poster on it. When you have this and you have that combined with your production stills and also all the original art files, the computer digital art files for your movie, all the PSDs, JPEGs, GIFs, whatever, all your vector file, anything that you've used for graphics in your movie, whether it be for your titles or whether it be for just, any type of other inserts within your movie, or also for your marketing materials, also need to be included. You can throw like all of the production stills, all of your all of the artwork, all that kind of stuff. You can throw that all on a DVD or a CD or something like that. That goes along with it. When you have your E&O insurance in line, your dialogue script, your music release, your music cue sheets, your sell sheets, your production stills, along with your artwork and all the PSD files and all that kind of stuff. You know what? Then you're ready to approach a distributor, because then they can see that they're not just dealing with an independent filmmaker. They see that they're dealing with a professional. And I think that that's just as important for the independent film community, is to be not just seen as hipster kids, making movies with their cheap cameras out, in the backyard to put on YouTube. There's a difference between amateur filmmaking, independent filmmaking, and to a point there is one also for studio filmmaking. And the bridge between independent filmmaking and studio filmmaking is narrowing, and it's just going to become at some point filmmaking. And the way independent film gets taken seriously by distributors, by studios, is by the level of professionalism that we can show them. The movie can be as artsy and as out there and original and awesome and everything as it can be. That'd be awesome. Here's the thing, though: you still have to approach it like a business. Studios, distributors, they're businessmen. They're investing money and time into you and your project. You have to treat them the same way back. It's one thing if you're doing the business and your floppy hat and your jeans, selling your movie in a diner at Sundance or Cannes or something like that. That's how it goes. But eventually you're going to have to go into a meeting with these guys, and you really should have your ducks in a row. So first of all, they understand they're not dealing with a fool either. It could definitely help you monetarily. And it also shows that, you respect them and you respect the process. And filmmaking is a process from start to finish, where, from the initial idea and the first draft of the script all the way through the distribution. It's a process, and you have to respect that process from start to finish, because that is how you're successful. That's my opinion. I know it can be done other ways. Not arguing the fact that it can't be done, but you know what? It's not necessarily the way it should be done. And that's exactly where I'm going to go with that. We've got a guest that's going to be coming on in a couple of minutes. We've got Mr. Clive Davies-Frayne from Film Utopia, and he's going to come on. He's going to tell us a little about Film Utopia, what they do. First things first, we're going to kind of segue into that by ending the show proper before we go right into the interview. I just want to say thank you for everyone who showed up. I'm going to say thank you to the people who are actually in the chat and are contributing. I want to say hi. Thank you to JB Movies, Sacred Flash. I want to say thank you to Stereo for Brains. I want to say thank you to everyone on Twitter that has been retweeting us today. I want to thank Audrey Walker. I want to thank King is a Fink, Quicksilver West. I want to thank Liz Fees, and I want to thank I also want to thank Maestro 1D for retweeting out about the live show tonight. I want to thank everyone on this Follow Friday that's on Twitter. Thank you very much.